everyone. And thank you so much for joining us. We're kind of improvising this because the woman and wonderful friend and writer who convened us got, I think, a little bit mixed up with times and time zones and is, I believe, at her own book event right now. So I think she had a whole spiel, an introduction for us, and I'm just going to make shit up.
Yay, that's what we do, right?
Yeah, that's what I do. Those of us who write fiction. So, okay, I'll just introduce myself first. I'm Naomi Williams, she, her, calling in from Sacramento, California, where it is still very much summer. Please send cooler weather. And I am the author of a novel called Landfalls, and many short stories and some essays and stuff like that. And I have been at Hedgebrook twice, once in 2010 when I was working on that novel, and then in 2016 with these lovely writers, and Janine Kovac, who is not with us right now, but is hopefully joining us. And it's a very transformative experience being there. The first time I went, it really opened my mind in ways I didn't expect. And the second time I went 6 years later, I wasn't sure it was going to be as great. And I was only there for 2 weeks instead of a month. And I said, temper your expectations, Naomi. And you know what? It was just as awesome. And I was just as fortunate the second time because I was with Dion Ford, I was with Sarah Novich, I was with Janine Kovac, I was with Sochi Bermejo, a poet who is also part of this cohort and part of this book club, and with the poet Celeste Gainey, who's not with us right now. But if she's out there by any chance, hi, Celeste. And some other writers. We all sort of came and went at different times. But this group, we really cohered in a magical way. And I think that other people who've been at Hedgebrook can attest to the magic that happens there and that kind of coherence and camaraderie that develops. And we actually came up with a name for ourselves, which had to do with the wildlife in the area. And we called ourselves, and we still call ourselves, the Slug Sisters, after the banana slugs that are common, well, all over the West Coast in temperate zones. So here we are. This is the Slug Sisters Reunion Book Club. I will be in conversation with Janine herself to talk about her book in December, The Nutcracker Chronicles, which is one of the books behind me. The first meeting, though, will be, Dion, when is it? November 10th?
I think it's November 9th, actually.
November 9th, that's right, November 9th, to talk about Dion's book, Come Back and Get It? Sorry.
That's okay. It's Go Back and Get It.
Okay, sorry. I can't find my copy of it, so I don't have it with me, which is a memoir about race inheritance, a fascinating book that Dion was working on when she was with us. Incredibly exciting to see these things come to fruition in the real world after being together and sharing those projects at Hedgebrook. And then in, let's see, Sarah, when is your book talk happening?
So mine is actually in January. I think it's the 26th.
Okay.
It's a Sunday.
Okay. So Sarah's the author of 2 novels, Girl at War, and her new book, True Biz, which came out recently. And I don't have my copy here, I'm sorry. And okay, and here's the thing that I'm super excited about, to be utterly self-aggrandizing. there is a kind of oblique reference to my novel in that book.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Yeah. I actually wrote the first page of True Biz at Hedgewood. Yep. Actually, probably the first 10 pages, maybe the first 10 pages. So, yes. So, your book was already on my mind.
Anyway, I think that's going to become my great claim to fame in the future. So, okay, so that's my introduction to us. Maybe we could ask Dion and then Sarah to also talk a little bit about their books, and we could go from there, themselves and their books, like self-introduction plus book.
Do you want me to go? Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Dion Ford, and I am the author of the memoir, Go Back and Get It. And that is the book that I was working on when I met these two lovely people at Hedgebrook back in 2016. What a fantastic experience that was. And yeah, so my book, Go Back and Get It, the subtitle is A Memoir of Race, Inheritance, and Intergenerational Healing. And that's exactly what it's about. It's about the process of me going back and getting the story of my great-great-grandparents, in particular, my great-great-grandmother, Tempe Burton, who was an enslaved woman. And my great-great-grandfather was the man who enslaved her. So I was really interested in looking at this history through the lens of my own interracial family that I'd created, you know, in the present out of my own, self-will and want and love, and also to consider the certain dynamics that my great-great-grandmother would have been living with that also continue today, particularly around, domination and just sexual violence. And so, yeah, that was what I went there to work on. And being at Hedgebrook was amazing. And I got so much great work done. And, a big part of it was also being able to meet other writers, other women writers who were also, working on their books. And gosh, what a pleasure it's been to watch as those books went out into the world. That's just been the best. And it was a transformative experience and continues to be, actually. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Over to you, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm located here in Philadelphia. But I am a Mets fan. I'm so sorry. That was a crazy game, guys. Anyway, all that aside, I think when I got to Hedgewood, Brook, I felt like I had just finished my first book, Girl at War, and it was out in the world. And it was such an odd experience because other people had opinions about my story that they were writing. They were, that was a story that I had written all on my own. And these other people were having opinions. I had taken many years to write that story. And then I finally had released it out to the real world. And it was scary. It was really scary. And then also, I think that many people feel like when you write your first book, that's everything that you have. You've put everything that you have into that book, right? And so I had all of these ideas that I had been thinking about for, 20 years, all stored up, and I put them in that book. And then I was like, okay, now what? I published that book. What do I do now? My mind was blank. I had no ideas of where to go from there. And then so for me, when I got to Hedgebrook, it was just the perfect place to have no ideas. It really was. Because it was really just this nice space where I could be out in nature and just kind of take in everything that was going on around me. And of course, you're learning from all the other writers who are there at the same time. We're coming together and having shared discussions, talking about our thought process as we start to write, coming together to share ideas. And definitely that experience changed my life at that time, without a doubt.
I'm gonna share a photograph that I don't know why this is. I actually have a photo, like a printed out paper photo of us, but this is the Slug Sisters from September 2016.
I have the same picture.
Ah,
Yeah. Oh no, yours is different from mine. Wait, let me get mine.
I also have that picture, and until recently it was in my office, but I recently moved and I haven't unpacked everything yet. Same picture.
Here's
Oh
mine.
my
See if I can get you to
God.
see it.
Oh, yours is around the table.
It's the table. I've seen that photo, but I don't have that. I love that you have it framed.
Yeah.
That's
Goals.
really,
Goals.
yeah.
I might have to up my game.
That's it. We all gaze at me. The picture is gazing at me. Anyway, thank you. Because I need your support when I'm writing. So there you all are. And I look up to you for inspiration.
Same. Now you've motivated me as I go back to work on my second book to dig that picture out. Now it's time. I've been at this new apartment for a couple months. It's time to put out my inspirational photos, especially that one. Thank you, Naomi and Sarah, for showing yours.
I don't really know what else Janine had in mind, honestly. But so some of us, because of the time mix-up, were texting each other this morning, and it was kind of lovely to have that kind of earlier discussion, because it reminded me all over again of what had brought us all together and how easy that sisterhood and fellowship had been at that time. I have not seen Sarah, I'm pretty sure, since Hedgebrook. Dion, I've seen maybe once at an agent party in New York before the pandemic. Janine I see occasionally because she's in Northern California also. But we were reflecting this morning about how we were together 8 years ago on the cusp of the election, the fateful 2016 election. And I think all of us were feeling, I mean, not like the world was such a picnic, but feeling sort of hopeful, right? About the election. We were about to get our first woman president, etc. And, that's not what happened at all. After the November 2016 election, I often thought about Hedgebrook because we had all just come back from there. And it felt like this innocent time. And of course, there isn't an innocent time, right? It's only in retrospect that parts of our lives seem innocent. But it does feel like some kind of an important before time. And I don't know if the rest of you had that experience at all with looking back at Hedgebrook after that election. But here we are on the cusp of yet another fateful, the fate of the world is in our hands kind of election. And we've been talking about having a reunion sometime this fall to either celebrate or console each other. So anyway, a lot happened in the last 8 years. A lot happened personally and globally and nationally and professionally. And it's been great to just touch base with everyone again today. So I don't know if either of you have reflections on that.
I'm thinking that we were literally babes in the woods.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
I think if I think definitely I feel similar to you, Naomi. And also I'm thinking about how my life is now. My life is completely different because I now have 2 children. I had no kids 8 years ago. I was completely free and I was a babe in the woods. And also now my life has changed so tremendously. My life is now focused on my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can only dream of the time where I can go into a woods for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something. Like that's only in my dreams now.
Mm-hmm.
I know it may happen again in the future, but for now, at this time of my life,
Mm-hmm.
it feels very much like another world.
It is another. That's because you're in another world now, Sarah. And Dion and I are now empty nesters. But I will say this both for Sarah and for anybody else listening who has kids at home right now. The first time I went to Hedgebrook in 2010, my children were 11 and 14. And the 14-year-old was like, go, whatever. The 11-year-old was bereft and stood in the driveway crying while I drove away in a cab. That was awful. And then every time I called from the little bit of cell reception I got like upstairs in my cabin, he would be crying and saying, "Where are you?" And everyone's being mean to me and stuff like that. And then my husband would get on the phone and say, "Naomi, he was fine until you called." And and then later I went to I go to residencies a lot now. I try to go once a year if I'm lucky enough to get in. And it did get easier, so that my 11-year-old was a very young 11-year-old. I think some other 11-year-olds would have been okay with me being away for 4 weeks. That particular 11-year-old found it very difficult. So just for like other parents of young kids out there, like there is it gets easier in some ways, right? It gets easier in some ways to spend some time away. But yeah, it's I mean you're in it right now. You are really in it.
Yeah, my girls were 13 and 16 when I went to Hedgebrook. And so it is funny. It's like this full circle, it seems like, when I went there, um, that was the farthest I'd ever gone for a residency. I'd gone to the residencies, but, within driving distance. And I remember as soon as I got there realizing that I probably should have asked to stay longer because I hadn't considered just the sort of, getting settled, aspect of it. But yeah, it was hard to, take the time away and then hard to leave once I'd gotten into the routine. And, every minute so precious knowing that there were no other demands, that I did have that time to, as Sarah always already said, just to think if I wanted, to rethink things, to allow my mind to just kind of like, relax. So yeah, that was a really precious thing that just can't be replicated when you have the demands of life. And so now, as as an empty nester, I am finding myself so excited to be able to go places and not be constrained by time in the same way, and other demands. So yeah, it's a real treat to be able to go to a residency and just think about your work and work on your work. And it will come again. It will come back again, Sarah. Don't worry. It'll be sooner than you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one other thing I was thinking about today. So when I went to Hedgebrook, I did have like an idea of what chapters in my book that I wanted to work on. And one of them was Paradise Lost. And it was the chapter that I was calling Paradise Lost. It was about, you know, my family's from New Orleans, and it was about the effect that Hurricane Katrina had had on my family that still lived there. And in my cabin, you know, they have those lovely journals that past members sign. And when I opened mine to the last page, someone had quoted Paradise Lost, Milton's Paradise
Oh,
Lost.
wow.
It was incredible. And it was the section about, and the world shall burn. It was eerily on point with the point and theme I was trying to make of my chapter. And I just felt like, okay, this place is a little bit crazy magical. The writers who aren't even here are communing with me and sending the messages I need. So I'm sure you all, I mean, we probably talked about those journals while we were there around the table. I feel like I kind of remember that.
I feel like I should just say too, just by way of sort of an epilogue, that sad 11-year-old is now 25 and is my first and best reader. An incredible supporter of my writing. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think I can say my kids are pretty great supporters. Yeah, one of them is here, so you know, right? Yeah, absolutely.
I want to ask Sarah a question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
No. I don't think it'll be I don't know, because I'm really interested. You know, your two books are very different from each other in subject matter. And you talked in your intro about how after you wrote that book, you know, everybody is talking about it, and there's the sense that it's the only thing you have to say, right? And I had that experience too, where I wrote a novel about 18th century French naval explorers. And after the book came out, like not a small number of people gave me like books and stuff about the age of sail and about exploration and about other explorers, or even about the one I wrote about. And I was like, I'm done with that topic. I'm like onto something else now. But now you have a second book out with a very different topic and setting and time period and everything. And I'm wondering if that's settled that sense of other people feeling like, acting like you have only one thing to say and you've said it. Now you've had like two completely different sets of things to say.
Does that mean, wait, let's just switch, sorry.
Okay.
That one is sorry.
So I guess one of the things that I think maybe I've become improved or more skilled at is actually ignoring what other people have to say and their opinions. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But a funny story about my 2 books. I think maybe right after Hedgebrook, I went to England, and I actually was there for the book festival. And I was promoting Girl at War while I was there. And I, was talking about the novel. And someone actually asked me, well, what are you working on now? And I said, well, this book, and it's completely different from the one that I've already written. And I said, Girl at War, this book is really about language, and it's about identity, and it's about finding your place in the world. And this True Biz is about language, and it's about identity. And I was like, oh shit, that's not actually different. And I was on the stage at the festival as I had this realization. Yeah, so that happened. But I think maybe that's probably going to continue to happen. I mean, these are the things that I find really interesting. I'm kind of obsessed with. And I think it will continue. I think that's a good thing.
Totally. When I was in grad school at UC Davis, we had a visitor come, experimental fiction writer Rebecca. Oh my goodness, what is her last name? It might be Williams. That's not her name. Anyway, she writes a lot about dogs and about her mother, right? And she said, she kept getting asked this question, why do you keep writing about dogs and your mother? And she said, I just say, it's my material. End of story. And that was so liberating. Yeah, I'm not writing anymore about French naval explorers, but you're right that there's underlying concerns and themes, questions and obsessions that are actually the same, right? About not belonging anywhere, about wandering where you do not belong, about trying to figure out your place in the world, about what to do if you are lost, etc. A lot of that stuff is the same in every story I write. So, yeah. Thanks. That was such a thoughtful answer.
Can I ask both of you a question? So what are you writing now? I know that's a bad question, but I'm curious. I'm just wondering what you're working on now.
Dion, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I am actually returning to the novel that I went to my MFA program to work on back in 2014, and then left with a memoir instead. I'm working on a novel about that takes place in Brazil. And now, after listening to the two of you talk about themes, I realize, oh, I guess I also am returning to a theme of like just not being able to escape your past. This, my story is very much a coming of age story, and it's a girl who leaves home in New Jersey to go to Brazil to kind of like get away from her family and her neighborhood and even her country, and ends up in a place that is, and with people who are all experiencing all of the same things she was trying to flee. So yeah, maybe that's all I've got. All I've got is wanting to explore how you can't escape your past. I don't know. What about you, Naomi?
So I have a short story collection that, well, I don't know how much I can say about this because it was under contract, but now it looks like that's falling apart. So I can't say much about that, but I was working on it at Hedgebrook 8 years ago, and it's now done, and I'm not sure what the fate of it is. but it's all like retellings of Japanese ghost stories and folk tales and stuff. So that's one thing. And I'm returning, I think, to my second novel, which I was trying to work on also at the same time when I was at Hedgebrook, which is about this Japanese poet from the early 20th century who left her 7 children under the age of 10 in the care of relatives and went by herself to Paris in 1912. And I actually recreated her trip in person. This was the year after we were at Hedgebrook together. I went to Japan. I took a ferry to Vladivostok and took the Trans-Siberian
I
Railway.
remember this story.
You remember this? Yeah, and I took
Me
the
too.
Trans-Siberian Railway to Moscow and then another set of trains to Paris and like recreated her whole trip. And I've translated hundreds of her poems into English. And then I abandoned the novel for a few years during the pandemic. But now I wish that I could read it. So I guess someone had better write it. And I'm thinking that might just be me. So I don't know. So anyway, that's sort of what I'm working on. I do want to say, because Jen reminded me of this just now, and I think Janine would have done this were she here. But for those of you who register for the book club, you'll be getting weekly emails sort of like reminding you of when the next live meeting with the author, the online live meeting with the author will be, and also just kind of keeping you on track with reading. I signed up for the previous one, and the last one was a memoir by the writer Putsada Rang, Cambodian American writer, and her memoir about being a Cambodian refugee and kind of coming to terms with her the legacy of trauma in her family. And it was great to get these weekly emails. For one thing, it reminded me that this book club date was coming up. And it also, Janine wrote these, and they were beautiful emails that looked at craft questions and the way the book had been put together, and kept me on track reading. And I think it made for a wonderful conversation online when it happened. So you'll be getting these. So Janine will be sending you emails about Dion and her book and that meeting coming up in November. Then you'll start getting emails from me and about Janine's book, which is about her life in dancing ballet and about her relationship with the Nutcracker in particular, a lovely, fascinating book. And then that meeting is happening December 14th. And then somebody will be writing emails about Sarah's book club meeting. And then you'll start getting them from me again, because I'll be sending you emails about Sochi Bermejo's book. She has a new poetry collection coming out early next year, and I will be in conversation with her about that in March, I believe it is, or maybe it's February. All the dates are on the Hedgebrook calendar, and I promise to be there at the appointed time. So, okay, I think that's what I needed to say about, the meetings will cover the writing process, the book itself. There's a chance for Q&A for those of you who register. So we, as Hedgebrook alums and Hedgebrook supporters, we really appreciate the support for ourselves personally as writers and for the organization, which has done so much to amplify, literally, the voices of women and non-binary writers for a long time. Anything else?
I just have to say, for someone who just literally filled in on the spot, you're doing amazing. Hey.
For real.
Well, thank you.
Great job, 10 out of 10.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think that's it. I hope a bunch of you will have, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope if you have not applied to Hedgebrook before and you are a woman identifying writer, that you will apply. And I hope you will all, in any case, sign up for the book clubs, because it'll be a really good time with some wonderful, wonderful reading. And love to my slug sisters.
Thank
Always.
you. Love back and love
Yeah.
Team Hedgebrook. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for
And love to
supporting
you
our
both.
work,
Thank you
both in the
both.
Yeah.
process and now that it's out. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.